So we're in Reading at GoPerform, this massive facility here. It's one of the more unique places that I've been to. It's got a really interesting model in the way that they work with subscriptions and so on. So we're going to meet up with Dan, Luke and Tristan, and they're going to give us a tour around. So let's check it out. I've even got my tea already. So yeah, very good service. So there's been a couple of places that I've come across like this, of ones that have come out from elite sport, medical team from elite sport, and then have set something up. People always talk about wanting to replicate elite sport, but this is actually applied to a number of different places and a number of different people in this industry. So Tristan's here already. Tristan, how you doing?
Good to see you. How you doing? You okay?
Likewise, thank you. Yes, so talk us through it. And how long have you actually been based? I know you were on this site previously.
Yeah, so we've been open as a business for just shy of 8 years. It'll be 8 years next month. 3.5 years ago, we moved into this bigger building. But yeah, we started out in a fairly small unit just over the way here. But yeah, we quickly expanded out and we've fleshed out this much larger unit now.
Very good. And what's your role here?
So I'm head of performance. I look after the strength and conditioning, sports science, testing arm of the company.
Brilliant, great. Let's
Yeah,
go.
come on through. Main corridor, reception to our right. Maisie on reception. And then our main facility is just through here.
So in the previous place that you had then, so it was on here, what's the difference between this and that?
The main thing is size. So this building is probably about 3 times the size of the previous one, but it's still the same, roughly the same layout, or certainly the same environment that we had in the old building. We wanted to have a strength area or a weights area. We wanted to have a track that people could do plyometrics and running drills on, but we also wanted to have an open space. So we've got a AstroTurf area at the back of the gym here, which measures about 13 metres by 7 or 8 metres. So it's a wide enough space that people can get a moulded stud on, they can move around, do lots of more 365-degree change of direction movements and more random kind of late stage rehab or conditioning patterns.
So when you were setting this place up, like who was involved at the start when it was 8 years ago?
So our directors are Dan Buchanan and Luke Anthony. I know them from our time working at Reading Football Club, so we were part of the first team support staff there. They set up the company. They asked myself if I wanted to come on board and look after the performance side of things. We also had Petra Minot, who is still with us. She looks after our office manager, effectively is her role. But she's also an excellent soft tissue therapist as well. So we all started off just the 4 of us, and we're all practitioners. And then we found our way to develop it out as a business really as well.
And how was that for you, joining the guys there? They've got to have a strong vision to get you out of employment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I worked with them previously. There was about a 2-year gap between the last time we worked together and then setting this place up. But yeah, I jumped at the chance to come back and join them. We had a great working relationship when we were in professional sport in that environment, and I knew that we could take that to this environment as well.
Before we have a bit of a tour around here, so what are the different stresses of working in sport to coming into working in a private setting?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think sport has its own stresses in that there's obviously very clear set deadlines to whether it's return to play, whether it's performance at the weekend. Everything needs to happen just at the right time to get the best out of everyone. I think when it comes to the general public, which is probably 80-90% of the people that we work with, yes, people might be running a marathon, they might be playing a sport at the weekend, but they're also training for their own health and wellness. So there's a big part of our population that are working towards just living a longer, healthier life. And that has its own slight different elements of stress, if you like, from a practitioner's point of view, because we're still doing right by them as our members and as our clients. But the time frame is much wider.
Sure.
So we can make sure that they're getting the right thing and they're progressing at the right level, rather than having that speedy return to return to performance or performance each week.
Yeah, brilliant, great. Let's have a look around.
Yeah, so come through. We're as I say, we've got the weights area kind of through the centre of the gym here. It's a mirror image, so we've got 6 racks through this rig which we had designed for us, bespoke design, with a couple of fixings that are also bespoke for us, a hip thrust bench, just to name one of those. We've got a 20 metre or just over 20 metre running track to our side here, so two different types of surface on there. We've got the darker blue is a AstroTurf, so really good for pushing sleds, doing farmers carries, things like that. The lighter blue is a rubberised track, which is excellent. It's got a really nice spring to it, so people can do plyometric work, sprint work, straight line, acceleration, bits and pieces like that. We do lots of testing on it as well, so we get the speed gates out, do some change of direction work on here as well. And then around the back of the gym, we've got our AstroTurf area. This is that area I was explaining where people can just work in much wider movement patterns, use it as a warm-up space. It's quite varied. Obviously, the more space you've got, the more variety at your disposal for how you want to use it. But we've got a lot of other unique bits of kit as well. We've got the anti-gravity treadmill, we've got our force plates, Nord board, flywheel training system, altitude training system. So there's other bits that we've added on around the edges that you wouldn't find in an ordinary gym as well.
So when you're kitting something out then, like when you're picking, how do you decide what comes in here?
Yeah, so we started out with a vision of how we wanted to flesh this space out. We had really good conversations with the company that delivered that, and they came back with a couple of samples of surface for us to try out, and we ended up landing on the right one. It's important to say as well that we're a small business, so we were working to a budget. We weren't limitless in what we could put in here. But again, the people that we worked with to set it up, they were great. They found the right solutions for us. And yeah, we're really happy with the outcome. It's lasted really well. So as I say, we're 3.5 years in here, and everything's worn exceptionally well.
It's really good. I mean, I think, as you say before, I know that budgets aren't limitless in sport, even though people from the outside always think that teams get whatever they want. But it is a very different dynamic when you're paying for it yourselves here, and you've got to build a business model for it. So how do you do that differently to when you're working in sport and you're trying to get the chairman or whoever it is that you need to get sign off, to building things here? Like what's the process for that?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's very different when you're playing with your own money or using your own budgets, and it's not a almost abstract number that you can try and speak to the powers that be about. So we're very pragmatic. We've tried to solve for an awful lot of solutions initially, and then we try and pivot as new solutions are required. So we stay in very close touch with all of our members. We get feedback on a regular basis from them, just about how can we help get a better environment, or perfect the experience for you in here. So we listen to that, and then we can bolt those extra bits and pieces on. Good example of that is we've never had a cable machine. So we were open for about 7 years, and then a year ago we got a cable machine because that was a really popular request from our members. That's over on the far side from where we're standing now. And lo and behold, it's a popular one, and people have asked for a second one. So, the slight difficulty with that is not then putting it into all the space that we make good use of on the AstroTurf and things like that. Keeping that open space is really important, but having that balance of getting enough equipment and, as I say, making sure it's a great environment and experience for everyone is important too.
I think that's an interesting point, really, because it's like when we would go and we work with teams as well, is that obviously the players are very important in terms of the feedback, whether they want something or not. So how do you do that as a practitioner? You're an expert in doing what you're doing, but you get people, say they're clients, and they're paying for it. Yeah. So how do you get that balance between implementing what they want or what you think is best for them?
Yeah, I think that's the art of coaching, isn't it? There's a lot that's I could approach a conversation with a client and say, this is, I think, the right direction for us. But if there's a lot of things in there that they aren't particularly keen on, we're not going to get the best out of that. So I'm quite experienced at this stage, and I know that a good conversation is always going to add clarity, certainly for me, in terms of what that person wants from not only the environment, but also from their program, from their session that day. So, being able to supply that as well as putting potentially my spin on it is is really important. So I always see it as a collaboration. I say
Yeah.
to people, it's a two-way conversation. You know, I will have my say, I think we need to go in this direction. It's very, very rare, if at all, that people want to go in directly the opposite direction, because we're generally quite aligned in a lot of that. But they might have a different take on things. You know, I prefer this exercise, I don't like the way we're doing that, or I would like more of what we've already done. And that's how we can work together to build the best possible program, session, and space as well.
And do you think that's changed? Because your model, as you said before, subscription model, you've got different packs, people are more educated on there. Like when I was growing up, there was like 1 or 2 gyms in my town, whereas now it's a real consumer thing.
Yeah.
So how, like, I suppose it is that how knowledgeable are your clients that come through?
Yeah, really knowledgeable is the answer. So I think more and more, especially recently, it's a great challenge to have is that people are learning an awful lot. There's a lot more sports science, sports medicine in the popular media. So people are coming in more educated, and they're coming in, they're having these conversations, sometimes quite challenging questions. And there's always a way of finding out answers and helping them with their queries. But I think gone are the days where you can say, do this because I said so. There's much more understanding and kind of expectation, I suppose, from our membership and our client base that there's something to back that up and evidence around everything that we're doing, which is exactly what we want to supply as well. So yeah, it is a bit of a challenge when we're faced with a couple of questions like that. But like I say, I think it's only a good thing because, you know, if we can educate people around their own wellness, their fitness, their rehab, it's only going to give them a bit more freedom, a bit more self-accountability to progress on that.
Yeah, people have got to be invested in what they're doing, haven't they? I think that's the market is massively growing, and from what we can see, and you need more people are asking questions and like you say, invested in it. So yeah, no, it sounds really good. Yeah. So what else do we need to see in here?
So I've already mentioned our sort of anti-gravity treadmill, I've mentioned our altitude system. Upstairs on the mezzanine, we've got our rehab and recovery area. So we've got a Pilates reformer up there.
Can we have a quick look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a reformer up here. We've also got a Game Ready, which is quite a popular piece of kit in professional setting or an elite sports setting. And we've got a couple of Normatec recovery pump boots as well. So they're always popular.
So in terms of that, you can see there's all a very big sporting focus in terms of that bit, and that's the case with a lot of clinics, is that you guys have all come from sport, but then you mentioned before that 90% of it isn't sport. So like, how do you, like, where do you see that balance going from it? Because again, everyone always, with people we speak to, like, we want to give a professional athlete environment for the everyday population. But you wouldn't have a business if it was just based on people that were semi-pro or pro. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we were always at pains to create a positive environment and experience for people that would be familiar to a professional athlete, but that was accessible by everyone. So we work with everyone from 8 years old to 80 plus. And people have very different entry points. We always say that we want to know everybody's story. Everyone's got a different background and entry point and story and reason for coming here, whether that's for rehab, for training, for testing, whatever it might be. So if we can, we work closely with the individual. If we can make it as individually excellent as possible all around that person, everything else should take care of itself. So, you know, providing that level of attention and care and detail for each person for every session has always been part of our DNA, and that's what we ingrain into any new staff that come through. It's what we try and strive for each day as well.
How do you, with recruitment of people, like I've seen Dan's stuff and he talks very openly about getting in younger people as well, which I really like that philosophy of getting people in at that level. How do you find getting people bought into values, culture, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we've been lucky because generally we put a lot of stuff out on social media about our culture and our environment, and I think we tend to attract people that are like-minded as well. as with any recruitment process, there's an interview and face-to-face stages and things like that that go into it. Generally, like I said, people are always of the same mindset as us. They want to help first and foremost. They're in it to work with other people. So far it's been fairly easy to find the right people. We have a nice connection with a couple of universities, so we have placement students come in on their sandwich year as part of their course, so their third year, they've just finished second year. So it's really nice to see their progress. They're putting into practice a lot of the theory that they might learn at university. They have a chance to put that into practice here. And then we have graduate students that come in as well. So people that might have done some work experience outside of here, finished their university degree, but they're in a really good place to develop and really flesh out their roles here as well. So it's a really safe and encouraging, collaborative environment working here, which is great. So we have all of those high standards that we've always kept from our time in sport, but we want to bring everybody up along with us as well. So, that next generation of coaches that are graduating university or in the early stages of it, we want to bring them into that fold as well.
Yeah, and what a great environment to come into.
Yeah, we think so. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. Great. No, thank you for showing us.
Absolute pleasure.
Luke, thank you for inviting us here to this incredible setup. Firstly, well done for doing this. I know it's been a few years that you've been set up now, but how does it feel from coming from sport where we first met to running a business?
Well, the easy side of it in some respects is the clinical aspect. So your principles that you've worked on throughout your years, you sort of apply from a professional athlete, you can easily apply those to members of the general public. Doesn't mean to say that you treat them the same. Obviously, different characteristics of sort of a normal human being to a professional athlete, but the principles are generally there. So the clinical side has been great. It's been brilliant working with such a diverse group of people that we have in this building. The business side is more tricky. So I've been PAYE all through my life, from NHS through to 20 years in sport, where you get a paycheck at the end of the month, good, bad or indifferent, and then suddenly, you're responsible for the business and you're responsible for other people, making sure they get their paycheck at the end of the month. And as you know, all the nuances of what it's like to run a business, and what you think at the beginning isn't quite how it is as you go through, and things are ever changing, and the market's harder, like there's no doubt about it. It changes year by year, and it's tough sort of for any business, I think, nowadays to make it work. And but it's a good challenge, and it's as enjoyable as it's ever been.
It's really good. And what is the biggest learning that you've had outside of the actual business stuff from sport?
I think probably the thing we learned relatively early is we have this background in professional sport, and we thought, that will be probably the volume of work we have here will be at that top end of sports performance. And quite quickly you realise, well, that actually to run a business, volume is volume, and you're not going to have a clinic full of 25 professional athletes that you run day to day. That just wouldn't happen in any clinic. So to be successful and to be able to run a clinic, you need numbers, and the numbers come from all sorts of people. So it was slightly different to possibly how we envisaged it at the beginning. But like I said earlier, the enjoyment and the pleasure of working with, a 55-year-old non-athlete compared to working with a 20-year-old professional is no different. It's exactly the same. And so you learn to sort of embrace the needs of the general public and fit them into where they fit into your system. And I think that's what's provided us with a certain amount of the volume that we have here. I think if you're just looking to work down the professional athlete route, you could do it as a consultant, but you couldn't run it as a centre. So that's probably the thing that we learned relatively early on. And from a business point of view, it just comes down to the bottom line.
Yeah.
So I think I'm probably fairly pragmatic, and I think you almost need to have a little bit of pessimism when you start off to think, well, what can go wrong? Because you sort of need to know that at the beginning, because then you can sort of plan ahead and you'll know that your numbers will be okay. The worst thing that could happen is, or what we were worried about is we were completely wrong with it and the numbers would be wrong, and then you haven't got a business. So, any business will come down to the bottom line. I mean, there are lots of aspects to it. You try to, run a good, be good people and how you go about it, but the bottom line is important, and you need to know how that works. It sounds simple, but
Yeah.
it's pretty
I
obvious.
think we did our 13-week cash flow forecast, and even like established business, I was like, my God, thank God, we're not going to run out of money in 3 or 4 months, because it gets in your head,
Yeah,
doesn't it, in terms of that bit of it. Even if you just look at it and think, actually, we're really good here, you can start second guessing yourself on that.
For sure. And I think naturally myself, and probably Dan as well, slightly risk averse. So, you're worried about getting in over your head, and everything we own here, we don't lease anything, because I just hate that idea of owing money or not being able to afford something when you've got it. So the good thing is that means that you can sort of sleep at night and you're not worried about stuff. But probably from a business point of view, someone would come in, a chief executive at another company would say, well, what are you doing? Like, business is run on credit, you invest, you do this and that. So I don't know, we possibly miss a trick with certain things here, but we know we've got a sort of a solid, and a bit like what you said, you've got your cash flow, your forecast, that we've got enough money to pay the staff, and to, we're not in that sort of position, which is good, because you wouldn't want that sort of headache, really.
Yeah, I mean, you say you're risk averse, but I travel to a lot of facilities, and this is quite a unique setup. So, like, well done for creating something so impressive and unique from that perspective. And like, so how much do you speak to other people in the market? Because then I'll go and visit 10 clinics a week maybe in terms of doing that, see a lot of what's going on, and I sometimes wonder how much collaboration and talking there is.
Do you know, Andy, not that much actually. I think since we got going here, it's so busy with just the practicalities at the beginning, and then you're trying to sort of hustle and get things going, and then you've got like so I still run a really busy clinic. I'll see probably 40, 50 appointments a week, and I, if I had time, I could probably double that with the volume of market that we have here. So it's a bit of a double-edged thing, because I feel that I need to have contact time with patients to establish us as a centre here. The downside to that is sometimes that ability to stand back and, like you say, converse with other people, get other opinions, speak outside, work at what other people do. And we do it. Dan will do it more than me. But I would say I can be a little bit head down. It's definitely something that I'm aware of. I can be a bit head down because I enjoy the day-to-day. I enjoy seeing a new patient for the first time, wondering what you're going to get, working what the issues are, working with that patient to get a solution to that side. I really enjoy that bit. Looking at a spreadsheet and working out this or that. I enjoy very little on that side of it. But then, having said that, having conversations with yourself and other people, I really enjoy that as well, and probably don't make enough time to be able to do that. But partly, again, we're not the most successful business ever, of course not, but because our numbers are okay and we're busy, you're probably less incentivized to think, well, how can we make it, double our revenue or do this or that? It's because at the moment we're not far off capacity. There are ways for sure that we can improve commercially, but it's being good. It can sometimes be a bit of a barrier to that next step of being like really brilliant, because you're sort of focused on what you're doing day to day, as opposed to there's a necessity to, right, we've got to get out there and we've got to work out what's our next step on that side of it.
Yeah, but I think it's the point you mentioned. You've got to really understand why do you enjoy doing what you're doing? Like, you love doing the day-to-day stuff. Being with patients, brilliant. I think that what is success, you've got to define that for yourself.
No, you're right. I think, again, it's the same though working at a football club. If you focus on your day-to-day, which is players for training, do as much as you can to have the team ready for Saturday, get the game out of the way Saturday, go again next week. If you're just doing that, you're not moving forward. You're hopefully doing a good job, and the manager will be happy, but you've really got to move things forward. You've got to develop your staff, you've got to develop your facilities, you've got to look at your processes. You've always got to be looking at how you can improve. And I think when I was head of medical, I think we were able to combine those two things together. And I think we do it here. Myself and Dan work quite nicely on that. Like I say, I'm probably a little bit more focused, head down day to day, and sees the bigger picture a little bit more. And we talk a lot as well, and with the staff here. So You know, we've got really good staff here who have really good ideas. So that's a good thing actually, because it's not down to me to say, look, how are you going to do this? You know, we get good ideas from the staff all the time, and that helps to move things forward. So I wouldn't want to give you the picture of like, it is just day to day here. The day to day is really important. Getting that right you have to get that right, can't get that wrong. But yeah, I mean, we're constantly, the staff working on little projects, processes, how we can improve things, what new equipment we need, you know, that development side of it as well. So, because it is important. You know, otherwise you will become a bit more, not stagnant's wrong word, but you'll become stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear somebody, Tristan doing some good workouts in the back there. And then in terms of like just the general market, so I'm out in the market a lot and I see loads of great stuff, and that's the purpose of this podcast really, is to showcase the good that's happening in the industry. There is a lot of skepticism out there, there's a lot of, like certainly social media, there is a lot of hate out there. Like, how aware of that stuff are you? And
yeah, I think, so I'm not really a big follower on social media. I'm not on it. I don't really follow it that much, but I'm aware of it because you need to be aware of it, because that's where, you know, you get an understanding of where the market is and trends are, and the staff are here as well. And there's some good stuff on social media that you do pick up, actually, some interesting things. But what I do sense from speaking to other physios, and actually sometimes from patients, is, you know, what the expectation is now from physiotherapy as a profession. So, you know, when I studied a long time ago, it was very much movement rehabilitation based. It's a physical job where you assess someone physically, you will do something physically to help them, and that will include rehabilitation as well as manual therapy. And obviously these things go in trends, and you know, a big trend away from manual therapy and towards strength training, and these things sort of come and go. And I think the difference now, probably social media driven, is rather than to be able to sort of debate with different physios and say, you know, at conferences, and you know, this is my approach, and someone, you know, may respectfully disagree or have a different angle on it. Now, when you take these things online, it does become toxic, and it becomes polarized and opinionated, and it's like, well, what are you doing manual therapy for? You're never going to make a difference on that side of it, and then I think that's to the detriment of our care for patients. So there's no doubt about it. Physiotherapy is not one tool, you know, way of approaching a patient and getting them better, but your duty of care and your principles of the way you'll speak to a patient, the way you'll assess a patient, the way you'll manage a patient, will be broadly similar between, you know, it should be broadly similar between most people. And I just sort of think that, you know, now it creates an expectation from patients to be treated in a certain way, and I think, as I say, physiotherapists, well, you know, probably that slight culture now of being sniping at others, and the way that we sort of interact as a group has become, I feel it's become more negative. I don't remember it being like that. Probably maybe something more in private practice now compared to being in a club where you didn't really have that sort of, but I think a lot of it is social media driven, Andy. People will have strong opinions on things, and like I said, it'd be, you know, you're in one camp or you're in another. It's that ability to sort of recognise, this is a physiotherapy healthcare is full of nuance. It's, you know, no two patients you see will be exactly the same, even though they come in with the same diagnosis. They'll be, you know, so that's where experience gives you that, I think, that ability to sort of see the nuance between different approaches. So it's something that I don't really like to see in practice. But you're right, you know, the people I speak to, you know, clinicians and at clubs, in different practices, you know, still I think it's such a great profession, such a privilege to be able to help someone when they come into your clinic. You know, I love seeing a new patient and you wonder what they're going to come up in with, and you know, it's such a privilege to be able to sort of sit down with them and get an understanding of what their issue is, how it's affecting them as a person, how you can then identify a way in, and then how you can then form a plan with that patient to sort of get the improvement and to get them to the point where they want to be. So it's such a brilliant profession from that point of view. And there are, like, you'll know better than me, there are millions or hundreds and thousands of physiotherapists out there who do like a really, really good job. I just don't like to see that sort of division within it, because I think, you know, more or less everyone would know what a good, you know, you would be able to recognise what a good appointment looks like. You know, when a patient walks into the door, and this is what we talk about a lot here, you know, what that experience is. What should a good appointment look like? If you were to put a camera on me, you know, what would I want to see, you know, on that side of it? From the moment they walk in the door, they meet the first person, whether it be the reception staff, they walk into your clinic room, you know, it's clean, it's ready, it's welcoming. You know, your interaction with them is absolutely essential. Being able to, you know, listen to your patient, being detailed, making sure that, you know, you conduct a good thorough assessment, and then being able to engage that patient, and so that when they leave here they've got their plan and they're like, I'm heading in the right direction, I've got my plan moving forward. Can't make everyone better, you know, that you have to understand that as well, that there's obviously limitations of what you can do, but I think, you know, even if it is a case of someone comes in and you know, you can signpost them to something that's more efficient to get them better than what you can offer, you know, you've done a good job for that person. So, and sorry, I probably changed the subject here a little bit. What I'm sort of quite pleased about here is because we don't have the sort of financial pressure that think, I've got to get this patient back, or I've got to fill numbers for a diary for next week. The opposite, you know, if anything, you know, it's trying to make people independent, you know, so when they come in, as a business owner, I want people to have value for their time and their effort and their money, and to have a good outcome for that side of it. So if I think they need to come back, great, this is your best course of treatment, this is your best plan. But there's no pressure on that, and the same with all the patients, all the staff that we have here, you know, treat as best practice, never even think for a minute about a commercial, we need to do this or that because it's commercial. You know, we don't have that drive to do that, because we don't have the necessity to do that. So, you know, and so I think for me that means that the most important thing is if you were to bump into one of my patients or any of the patients of staff who leave here, I'd want them to say, that was a good appointment, that was good. I feel like, you know, I've got the right idea, I know what's going on, I know what my plan is, this is what I need to do, I'm equipped to do that, whether it's with further help from GoPerform or I can do that independently. It would be heartbreaking for me, and it must happen, because when you see 50 patients a week and you do that for 50 weeks of the year, you know, there's a lot of numbers there, but it would break my heart if someone said, how was Luke? It was all right, it wasn't great. That would break my heart, but it will happen, I know, because of that. But that drives me actually to make sure that everything is right, because when you run a business, you know, you just cannot afford to, you know, you can't have a off moment with it. You've got to be consistent with it, whether it be Monday morning, Friday afternoon, Thursday night, Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock. That appointment should look the same all the way through. You can't let a personal thing or a tiredness or affect one moment of that. And I think it's a challenge, but that can be probably the hard thing, is when you feel like, okay, you know, today's, for whatever reason, kids are driving me mad, I'm exhausted. Doesn't matter. Once you step foot in that treatment room, or once you meet that person, you know, game on, that's got to be it. And I think that's when you work in a sports environment, that does help, because you can't have that in a sports environment either, because there's people putting pressure on you, there's a dependence on you on that side of it. So that consistency that you have in sports does help with how you approach it here as well.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like James Clear, Atomic Habits, and it's basically, it's the basics. You know all of those things, you've got to do that, and the nuance that goes onto it in terms of how people decide what course of treatment, that is a bit more nuanced in terms of how you do that bit of it. But as long as you're following those pretty basic things that you said.
So. I think when we set the facility up here, the idea is that we are rehabilitation based. That's probably an expectation of our patients here, that, you know, if you've got an ACL injury, unless you're acute and you've got a knee that doesn't extend or something obvious where you need a little bit of help with it, it's going to be a rehabilitation pathway that you're on. And so, you know, our treatment rooms take up 25% of the building and everything else is 75%, and that's where we're at. So it provides the facility to be able to do that, but the pathway means that, you know, someone for a half an hour appointment can come in early, they can warm up, they can do their stuff, they pay for your time, which is the expensive part of the appointment, and then they've got their plan, they conduct that here, they can use the equipment here. So I think that is there's probably an implicit understanding that that's our pathway that we run here, that it's rehabilitation based. We obviously do manual therapy. I mean, we have a team of therapists. I'll do, whether it be acupuncture or shockwave or soft tissue, whatever it needs doing as appropriate, we offer that for sure. So definitely don't diminish that side of it. But I guess, as I said, there's an implicit understanding that when people come here and the recommendation here, the rehabilitation is the sort of the cornerstone for it, I would say. And there's probably very few appointments, less than 5% of appointments that where we don't have to spend some time in this part of the building for at least some part of that. And for many appointments now, we don't actually spend any time in the treatment room. So follow-ups, I need to reassess someone every flipping week. You know, if I know what the plan is and they come in and say, yeah, we're okay, straight into it, get into our work, and it's just offering as much value as I can, get as much into them as I can, because I won't see them again for another week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So as much as I do here, the important thing is the plan. What's the plan? What are you doing for the next 3 4? Are you really clear with what you're doing, what you're not doing, how you're doing it, how much of it you're doing it, the technique that you're doing it with, how that interacts with the rest of your day, how to deal with pain, how to deal with a setback? You know, that needs to be done within that session. So yeah, but because we can take some of the fluff out of that half an hour, whatever it is, follow up, because they can do all their warm-ups. We're not wasting time. We're not spending time doing stuff that they don't need me to be there with. You know, that time is sort of full on. So we've got that plan to set up for the rest of the week or whatever it is until I see them next.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing the way that you run things here as well. And like, you wouldn't have seen places like this really 10 years or so ago in the UK. There weren't many things. Where do you see like the MSK space, rehab space going from that private perspective?
I think part of the problem is, Andy, it depends on which way you look at it. So if I'm looking at it from a business person, if I was just new to it from the outside, trying to set up a business, probably the money is in clinic-based work, appointments-based. I would have cheap staff, rack 'em and stack 'em appointments, one after the other, work with insurance, work with as many different people as I could, and I would turn over as much. And I would have less worry about the value of care that you offer, because there are people out there who you'll churn over. So if you were just purely business-minded, you would probably run it clinic-based, as many staff as you can to run that, relatively low-paid staff if you can get away with it, and you just turn over a high volume. That clearly isn't what me or any other physiotherapist would envisage is good practice, or what we would set out to be. So, we came at it from an idea of just what's best practice. If you've injured your ACL, if you've got low back pain, if you're, what is best practice? What's going to give the best opportunity to get that person fit within the resources that you can offer them? So I think the model here, it probably isn't easy to replicate. There's quite a lot of know-how at the beginning on finding the right building, understanding how use of building works, how you can find a warehouse type facility where you have bigger square foot at lower cost versus town centre or high street, which is sort of different. What staff you work with, so we've got a mixture of staff, performance staff, S&C staff, sports therapy staff, massage therapists. So I think this fits closer to my background in professional sport, but I don't think it's an easy thing to set up. For a number of those reasons, really. So in terms of what I would see as good practice for physios is less worried about what you can do in half an hour to that person, more thought about the bigger picture of what they need to do, because in a 24-hour day or however many hours that is in a month, if they're with you for half an hour of a month, you've got 30.9 days where you've got to make sure that plan's right. So there's no problem spending 10 minutes, 15 minutes of that appointment making sure everything's crystal clear. This is what the issue is, this is how you need to go about it exactly, as opposed to how much can I, if you're going to do acupuncture, it's probably going to take you a half an hour session. And that's fine if that's planned and you think at that time, that's the best practice for that person, absolutely fine, and I've done that. But you have to work out what's going to be the best value to get that person to where you need them to be. And so I think, for me, most of that will be how you then rehabilitate that. It's very rare that I can do something to someone to fix a problem. It's very rare that those sort of things happen. Just there's no magic out there. You've seen it. Yeah. There's things you can do to influence it positively and get people started. It's using that time to map out what that plan would be, and as I said, the majority of that will be rehabilitation based. And you don't need a huge facility for that, but you do need some facility for that. You do need some basic equipment. But the most important thing is you need time within your appointment to sort of structure that. And I think being efficient with your time. So if you've got a follow-up appointment and you're going to bring someone into the treatment room, by the time you get them in the treatment room and go through the pleasantries and talk about where they're at and you reassess them, that's at least 10, 12 minutes. Then you transition them into somewhere, trainers back on, back into the gym, that's probably 15 minutes. So if you've got half an hour, that gives you 15 minutes of that. Now if that's what you're planning, that's fine, but you need to know, well actually, what about start in the gym, warming up on the bike, chat as you're warming up. Okay, how are you getting on the exercises? Use that as your first 5 minutes to review where they're at, talking as you go. And then you've got 20, 25 minutes to develop that plan going forward. So again, it's just everyone will have a different approach to it.
Yeah.
It would be wrong for me to say, look, that's the right approach. It's just the way I approach things. It goes back to our debate earlier. You'll have physiotherapists, brilliant physiotherapists who you'll talk to have a completely different approach. And as long as you're getting good outcomes, then that's important. But I do believe generally as a physiotherapist, that is roughly what I would want it to sort of look like.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you've just won Entrepreneur of the Year in terms of the things here. So, like when you're reflecting back on setting the business up, like what do you think is the biggest learning that you've had from your whole career?
There probably isn't one light bulb thing that changes it around, but coming back to what we just talked about, if you look after your patients to the best of your ability, and you do that consistently, you'll be okay. So that means that patient will probably want to come back to see you, and if they want to come back to see you, they'll probably recommend someone else. So that means that your clinic will be full. Now, you or someone else might say, well, that's not necessarily good business just because you've got a full clinic. But I think that's a good starting point. So if you run your day-to-day well, you do your best for your patients, every single one, professional football player, 50-year-old office worker, you do your best for that person, give them everything that you've got, and do that consistently day in, day out, I think you'll be all right. That would be my thing. If I was saying to someone who was setting up, as an independent physiotherapist or clinic-based, then if you can just develop that a bit more, so have the people around you roughly on the same page, so everyone's on the same page trying to do their best for the people they're managing, whether you're doing a performance-based S&C session, whether you're doing soft tissue therapy for a pregnant lady, whatever it is, whatever part of it you're doing, do your best for that individual, be consistent with that, you'll be okay. Yeah. And that means that your business will be successful. Now, if you want to then, from a development point of view, expand into a really thriving, successful business, you need to look a bit bigger than that, and you need to strategize and work out, how you're going to grow things, develop your facility, develop staff, bring them in, have a sort of a plan going forward. That becomes a little bit more a bottom line type thing as opposed to a good practice. But I think what we've always come back to, and we've been here for nearly 7-8 years now, is to have, if you do your best for your patients, you'll be okay. And that's sort of still where we're at the moment.
Brilliant. Look, thank you very much for hosting me here.
No,
great
not
to
at all.
see you. Well
Thank
done
you
for
for coming
doing
down.
this.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot for coming down.
Good man. Dan, great to see you.
And you.
So we've just had some cake from one of your team here, which I very much enjoyed. I would have given it an 8 out of 10. Now, you've spoken about some of your values, and to talk to me about like how you build your values and how long it took you to create those.
Yeah, I think it all started from actually, even before we would GoPerform, we worked in a football club together, and we all got on really well, and there was a really strong positive culture there, and we wanted to reproduce a lot of that into what we did here. So we started with 4 of us, and we were really tight from the start. We want our staff to feel really cared for and developed and looked after, and to have some fun. We've done things in the past where we've almost done like pulse checks of where everyone's at and how they're feeling anonymously about what we're doing and our structure and where we're going with it all. And we encourage really positive feedback. So we give feedback all the time to our colleagues, and equally they give us feedback as well. So we're very much quite a flat structure in terms of how we work together. And we communicate pretty well, I think, which is great.
So yeah, radical candor and no rules, Rules, the
Yeah.
Netflix one, are
Yeah.
two of my favourite books, and they're very much of that. And I think it's something that it's not always easy to get into that mindset because you feel like you're being critical. I think in Britain there's that association of, well, you being nice with how you're doing things. Whereas I think that's actually really valuable, having clear, still constructive, but direct feedback on things.
I think we want to be able to employ people. We want them to get pay rises. We want the business to grow. So we have no choice but to do everything relentlessly and as well as we can, and to work really effectively and to communicate really well. So we don't want to have silos. So we have a sports injury and a performance side. We want it to all work really well together. And in our previous building, we had a really small office that we couldn't all get together very well in, whereas now we have a bigger office and we can have case conferences and talk about the people on our training programs. And as a result, our customers feel really well supported, and they know that we talk about them, as a team, just like you would in a football club. So yeah, Radical Candor is exactly what we're trying to do.
I mean, it feels like you've got a really good team here as well. Like it feels very close, like you say. Everyone seems relaxed, but not just with the team, but with your clients as well. It does feel like it's got that club mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. So we tried to have a non-elitist, non-macho male, friendly expert environment. They're probably the kind of words that we'd use to describe that. And again, taking what we'd seen in sport and bringing that to here. I think people like the fact that sometimes they do have a bit of imposter syndrome when they come in, but we work really hard on that and being friendly and explaining that actually an 80-year-old knee replacement is just as exciting as a 25-year-old groin strain in a footballer, for example. So we do work with people of all ages. They like it being fresh and kind of clean and, always ready to go again. A bit like, say, if I was working for, Liverpool, I'd want the gym perfect before the players walked in the room. It has to be the same here. It has to be good to go, clean, fresh. And we have to be completely intentional and, focused on the person that's with us in every time slot of the day. So we try our hardest. And I think for a lot of people, it's something they've not experienced before. For us, it was just how we were used to working. And we really enjoy it.
So is that come from you working in sport, or is that just you as a personality?
I think I'm quite an empathic individual, so I'm probably quite aware of how people feel. So yeah, partly that, and then the other side is having seen good standards. We want those standards to be across the board. So we have an internship program. Every year we have students that come on placement from university, and sometimes we have graduates too. And very much in the first few weeks of their placement or their year with us, we'll be really kind of clear with what we expect, and whether it be body language, hands in pockets, whether it be wearing a watch when you're treating, things for us that you just wouldn't do. We want to have our standards really set and consistent so that people come in and get a really good service, because some of us that have been here longer, we can't see all the patients. We need everyone to take the load together, and so we need everyone to be equally competent and good and to communicate well and to listen well. So our members, as you said earlier, they're really good at giving us feedback as well, and often positive feedback. So I like the idea of positive gossip. So where you speak well of somebody and you make sure that you reinforce good things in them. Yeah. And I love giving that feedback to the staff as well.
Yeah, it's just really interesting, isn't it? It's creating that. You've got very specific things that you've mentioned there in terms of hands in pockets and so on. I'm trying to think if I had my hands on the gym floor actually, but anyway. But yeah, that trying to build that culture, they're very specific things. So again, where does that come from?
Maybe we're slightly old school, I don't know. I mean, one of the biggest bugbears I have in football clubs, so I still do a bit of work in football clubs now, and I see members of staff on their phones in public spaces in the gym with the players, and that really frustrates me, because that's not being focused on what you're trying to do in that moment. I think people can check their phones in their lunch breaks if they need to, but they should be on airplane mode. I leave my phone in the car when I go in because I want to make a point of not being distracted by my phone. So it's about intentionality and being completely present with whoever you're working with. And people smell that. When you start working with that intensity, they love it and they want to see you more. And I think my advice to younger ones would be absolutely copy some of the older ones sometimes. And if their habits are sloppy, then be better.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting, because you think as well is that from my time of being in and around football, particularly football and other sport, is 20 odd years now. And mobile phones are so prevalent. You see the players are on them as well, and it has got that environment. And there is a real. I'm going to do another podcast with someone who's just left sport recently, and there's a lot of negativity I feel about talked around, particularly the medical piece, because that's where we're working, and about being in sport, just with the pressures, the the lack of respect of just a switch off time for people. Like, what's your thoughts and experience of that?
I see. So I'm therapeutic. So I do lots of soft tissue type work with footballers, and I see that as a chance for them to decompress and to be real and to be present and authentic when they're with me. So I'll try and create an environment where they can be that. So I'll even encourage them to leave their phone on the side away from themselves, unless they're expecting a baby or something. And I'll ask them how they're doing, and I'll ask them what they're working on, and I'll go deliberately after different conversations, not just chatting about football or the result or who's been transferred, but to try and give them something different, because they don't often get lots of outside input. And the feedback I get from those players is that they really appreciate those conversations. So I think just being holistic with each other and being really mindful that people are struggling with all sorts of areas, and also being vulnerable myself as well, and saying, when I find things difficult too. So every football club I've ever worked at, the first time you drive through the gates, you do have to kind of gather yourself. Go, okay, cool, I'm in performance mode here, and that's normal. That's part of performing, isn't it? But you're right, that I'm really into Brené Brown and the art of being vulnerable, and how we can really push forward in life when we step into bigger boxes that feel difficult. So I talked to some of the players about that. I showed them TED Talks, because I want them to develop as young men, and I don't want them to have dysfunctional relationships and lives. I want them to do really well and to be happy and to sleep well and to eat well and all those things. I think sometimes in sports teams, this is getting away from GoPerform a little bit, but also here as well, sometimes we get really obsessed with the performance aspects and how hydrated you are and different supplements, when actually someone isn't sleeping very well, or they're lonely because they're away from home. They just need to be invited around for dinner. So I'm really into that stuff.
Well, I think, it is separate to GoPerform, but it's also not, as in it's humans, isn't it? Like you talk about, we chat outside of this stuff about running a business and various things. And I think it's really important to be able to be open and have that space to do so. So whether it's in treatments or the clubbing mentality you've got here as well. So I think I sense people are being a little bit more open these days, with people like Brené Brown talking about it and some of these other books. And I really love all that aspect of life, really, because it does, particularly at the moment, that the other business owners, the people who are employees, everyone seems really stressed. Okay. This was my experience of seeing it, again, whether it's in sport, whether it's in business, whether it's outside of the industry. And it's like, well, how do we... I want, for physically at my work here, for everyone to love working with us and love working for the company. And that's a real driver for me. And it came through completely chatting to Luke just before about... He loves treating. He loves being with people. He really loves that aspect of it. And so how do we get everyone doing more of really what they love doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So in this situation, he's clinical director and he is the technical, experienced brain behind the operation, and we need him to be that and to take away the other bits from him, which is great. And so I guess it's trying to find skill sets and people's preferences and going with that, really. I think for us personally as well, I just want our staff and our team to know that we really care about them. So we want their careers to go really well. And it might be that they leave us one day for a better opportunity, and we'll celebrate that with them. But equally, while they're with us, I want them to be able to buy houses, have pay rises, to get bonuses, to get rewarded for the work that they do. And I think we might not grow as aggressively as other businesses might, but I think we'll last longer, potentially. There's a book called Centennials, which is about organisations that have been around for more than 100 years and what makes them special. And that's something that really inspired us earlier this year to think about. And I think sometimes having a smaller profit margin and lasting longer is much better. And for us, that's sustainable. And I'm 43 years old. I love what I do. And I love this place, and I want it to grow gently over the next few years, I guess. And we'll be open to opportunities, and we'll go hard after things, but we're not in a rush to do big things too quickly. Because every person you take on, you have to be able to afford them and pay for them and all the rest of it.
Yeah. I remember you mentioning that book when we did the Life Stories podcast.
Yeah.
And it's the one I've looked at. Built to Last is another good one where you're looking at these longer term things. And I think it's really nice to hear it, and you can see it seeps through the whole company in terms of that bit. You're all about how do you make something really good, and other stuff will come with it. And that's not to say that you forget about profit margins and balance sheets and all
We're
of that.
aware of that stuff. Yeah.
But in terms of like the dynamics then between, like Luke was saying that, yeah, he's aware of that stuff, but he's still got quite a busy clinical load. So was that something when you were actively setting up that you thought, right, I'm going to be having to do a lot more of that?
Yeah, so I'm a sport rehabilitator, so naturally physios initially will get more bookings because people know more about them. So at the start of it, he was full really quickly. I was less full. I was probably seeing 5-6 patients a day. And so I had half a day free to do the admin side of things. And our soft tissue therapist, Petra, is also our office manager. So we had kind of multi-roles almost within the four of us to start with. And it's kind of grown like that. I probably see about 40 patients a week now, which is probably too many still, and try and do all the bits around it and look after the team. So we're kind of trying to bring in new people to take some of that responsibility away from us clinically. But we also, I'm a bit like Luke, I love being with people too. And I'd much rather be with someone than a laptop. So, but I'm aware someone's got to almost be a bit of a managing director. So that's the bit I kind of take, control. But we have some brilliant people helping us with the back office now as well, which has been really good. We've been really pragmatic about growing the team really gently and bringing in the right people at the right times and being really transparent. So, some of them might have started on lower salaries, but we've increased their salaries every year and they can see that. So we can almost say that, this is where we're at as a business. If you're up for growing with us, we'd love to grow with you, and taking it from there really.
In terms of like training and support for things, like you're running a business now, like how do you upskill yourself and Luke?
Yeah, great. So we try. It's hard. We need to take more time out of our diaries to do that. The priority's probably been more on the team than ourselves, but we try and have clinical conversations with our peers. For me, going into Reading Football Club once a week is really helpful, and speaking to them about certain things. And so it's probably often with the surgeons and the doctors and the other peers at other clinics, and having case conferences that way works really well. I'm looking to do more CPD type stuff as well. I think I'm thinking more around some of the business management stuff now as well, in terms of how I can be better at leading us a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, that's why I set up this Unbound project with Andy and Andrew on that bit, just because we go into a lot of places, and it's even just people reflecting. One of the nice things for me is, I was just saying it to Niall prior, was Luke was like, it's really nice to reflect on what we've done here, what you've created, because it's such a cool space. But people don't often, because you've both got busy clinical caseloads,
and we've got busy families as well.
You got busy lives. It's like, well, it's so important to get out with it in my mind and be like, right.
Totally.
All I'm doing, I'm out of that. I've got your phones off, any of those bits, and you're actually speaking to other people and thinking that's good.
Yeah.
We
are starting to do that together more. So we have like a monthly team meeting, which is an hour long, which is really good. And we can get quite a lot done in that time, where we look at our direction of travel and what we're doing, and maybe some case study stuff. We have a podcast, so I guess from a CPD point of view, we get a lot from that, a bit like you guys do. And we do seminars and workshops as well. So a lot of our development has probably been in-house actually as well. And then trying to get out and see others too. So it's fun, it's really good. And kind of the years go by and the IP in the business grows, and you kind of know a bit more about your area. I want all of our staff to be really confident in loads of areas, so that when people come in, they can enjoy their days and enjoy the mixture of the type of people that we see.
And like, what's next for GoPerform and for you?
We always want to be in a position financially to be able to take the next opportunity, whatever that might be. So during COVID, our aspiration was to be able to double our building and grow out of it. So we kind of held fire in that period, and then we were able to grow within a year into this bigger space, which has kind of doubled our revenue and our turnover, which has been great. We want to be open to potentially other sites, potentially owning our own building, potentially people investing in the business. We're open to all of it, but we need to run a really tight ship in order to be attractive and to be good in that way. Most importantly, we want our staff and our team to grow and enjoy the work, and they need to have that direction of travel too. So we find that every year. So for example, last season we started working with the Guildford Flames, doing all of their strength and conditioning, and that's like a remote project that Tristan manages, not in the building. So we're quite excited about doing other things in other spaces worldwide, using our training platform, and even like some of the remote physio stuff we now do abroad. It's really exciting. So there's limitless scope. We feel like we've got the knowledge and some really good people in our organisation, and a lot of that happens in this building, but we're now starting to do stuff worldwide as well, which is great.
Brilliant. Now, look, well done with creating a great facility, but I think you have got such a really great culture and focus, so well done on doing that.